Imagine standing on a rocky Scandinavian shore in the 8th century CE. The air smells of pine and salt. Suddenly, from the mist, long, sleek ships carve across the waves, dragon-headed, powered by clenched fists rowing in rhythm. On board, warriors with round shields glimmering in the dawn shout as they prepare to strike. For centuries, the word Viking would terrify Europe. Their raids reshaped kingdoms, their explorers reached new continents, and their myths still echo today. But their story was not simply one of blood and conquest. It was also about trade, settlement, and cultural exchange. And eventually, even their fierce power would fade. So who were the Vikings? How did they reach such staggering influence? And what led to their decline? The Viking story begins in Scandinavia, modern Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. Harsh winters, rocky soil, and sparse farmland pushed its people to look outward. Survival required resilience, and opportunity often lay beyond the fjords. Not all Norse people became Vikings. The word originally described an activity, to go a Viking, to raid or explore by sea. But over time, it became synonymous with an entire culture. They were expert shipbuilders, crafting longships that were fast, shallow, and flexible, able to cross oceans or slip silently up rivers. These vessels were their superpower. By the late 8th century, population growth, limited farmland, political rivalries, and new ship technology combined into a storm. The Vikings would erupt into the world stage. The Viking Age traditionally begins in 793 CE, when Norse raiders struck the monastery at Lindisfarne in England. Monks chronicled the horror. Warriors slaughtered holy men, pillaged treasures, and burned the shrine. For Christian Europe, it was an unimaginable outrage. But this was only the start. Over the centuries, Viking ships raided Ireland, England, Francia, Iberia, even as far as North Africa and Byzantium. Their mobility made them nearly unstoppable. One moment they were gone, the next their sails appeared on the horizon. Yet not all Viking expeditions were about plunder. The same ships that carried raiders carried goods. Vikings traded timber, furs, and amber for silver, silk, and spices. Market towns like Hedeby and Birka flourished. Vikings traveled Russia's rivers to Constantinople. Even some served as elite bodyguards, the Varangian Guard, for Byzantine emperors.
And farther still, Norse sailors crossed the North Atlantic. They settled Iceland, discovered Greenland, and around the year 1000 reached Vinland, North America. 5 centuries before Columbus, Leif Erikson's crew touched American shores. As plunder and trade enriched Scandinavia, petty warlords became powerful rulers. Figures like Harald Fairhair of Norway and Canute the Great, who briefly ruled England, Denmark, and Norway, expanded Viking power into royal dynasties. The North, once fragmented, began consolidating into kingdoms. Viking society was more complex than pure raiding suggests. Most Norse people were farmers, raising cattle, barley, and oats. The image of every Viking as a raider is myth. Raiding was part-time, farming was life. Women. Viking women held more rights than many contemporaries. They could own property, divorce, and manage estates. Sagas even mention shield maidens. Whether legendary or rare exceptions, they symbolized female power. The assembly, or thing. Vikings valued communal decision-making. Things were assemblies, where disputes were judged, laws agreed, and leaders chosen. Early democracy of a kind. And their belief system shaped their worldview. the gods of Asgard: Odin, wise and fearsome; Thor, protector with his hammer; Freyja, goddess of love and war. A cosmology of 9 realms, spanned by Yggdrasil, the world tree. An ending foretold: Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, when even deities would fall. Their mythology reflected a people who expected hardship, honored bravery, and believed death in battle secured eternal honor and Valhalla. By the 9th and 10th centuries, the Viking Age was at their peak. In the British Isles, Norse settlers established the Danelaw in northern and eastern England, leaving behind cities like York, Jorvik. They founded Dublin in Ireland. In France, Viking leader Rollo accepted land from the Frankish king, founding Normandy, which centuries later would produce William the Conqueror. Across Eastern Europe, Norse traders, the Rus, helped found Kiev and Novgorod, laying groundwork for what would become Russia. In the Mediterranean, Vikings raided as far as Sicily, controlled key trade lines, and impressed emperors with their service. Vikings reshaped Europe politically, economically, and genetically, not simply destroyers, but contributors to new identities. No civilization reigns forever. By the 11th century, the Viking Age was ending. 1. Stronger enemies. As kingdoms in England, Franzia, and elsewhere grew stronger, they resisted raids more effectively. Fortified towns, organized armies, and navies blocked Viking attacks. 2. Conversion to Christianity. Missionaries spread through Scandinavia. By adopting Christianity, Norse rulers gained legitimacy in European politics, but abandoned old raiding justifications tied to pagan gods. Churches replaced temples. Crosses replaced Thor's hammers. 3. Internal consolidation. Kings unified Norway, Denmark, and Sweden into kingdoms with centralized power. Instead of scattered independent raids, societies turned inward, stabilizing into monarchies. 4. Economic change. As trade networks evolved, silver hoards dwindled, and raiding became less profitable compared to settled commerce. By the mid-11th century, the Viking Age was ending. Though their naval dominance faded, the Viking legacy endured. Language. Old Norse words enriched English: sky, egg, knife, law, and more. Names and bloodlines. From Normandy to the British Isles to Russia, Viking ancestry threaded through nobility and commoners alike. Exploration. Their daring voyages showed what was possible with courage, skill, and vision. Myth. Viking sagas, runes, and mythology outlived the age, inspiring countless retellings, from Wagner's operas to modern films, games, and comics. Once feared as destroyers, history now remembers the Vikings as farmers, traders, explorers, storytellers, and builders of kingdoms. The rise and fall of the Vikings reminds us, even the fiercest storms pass. From tiny coastal villages, they surged outward to touch 4 continents, then receded into kingdoms and Christendom. Their sails vanished from the horizon. But in many ways, the world they helped shape is the one we still sail through today.